Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, staring at the holographic display that showed nothing but empty space. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he didn't care. Something felt wrong. After 30 years in space, he had learned to trust his instincts. "Sir, we're picking up strange readings," said Lieutenant Park, her voice tight with concern. Massive energy signatures forming near Jupiter's orbit. Minho set down his cup and walked to the main console. The readings were impossible. Space itself was tearing open in 12 different locations, forming a perfect sphere around Earth. Each tier grew larger, pulsing with colors that hurt to look at. "Get me Earth Defense Command now," Minho ordered, "and prepare all weapon systems." Within minutes, the first ships emerged. They were massive, bigger than any human vessel ever built. Dark metal hulls covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move. One ship became 10, then hundreds, then thousands. The holographic display lit up like a Christmas tree as more and more vessels poured through the rifts in space. "Sir, we're counting over 12,000 ships," Park said, her face pale. "They're forming a blockade. We're surrounded." Minho watched as the alien armada completed its deployment. Every human ship, station, and satellite was now trapped inside a sphere of enemy vessels. Earth sat at the center like a prize in a cage. On Earth, Dr. Hannah ran through the halls of Defense Command headquarters. Alarms blared throughout the building. She burst into the communications center where dozens of analysts were trying to make sense of the alien signals flooding every frequency. "Play it again," she told the technician. Her hands shook as she pulled up the translation software. She had spent her entire career studying dead languages and theoretical xenolinguistics. She never thought she would actually need it. The alien message was complex, but the meaning became clear. Hannah's blood ran cold as she read the translation aloud. "They call themselves the Collective of United Galaxies. They say they have absorbed 40,000 civilizations across 8,000 galaxies. They're giving us 72 hours to surrender. And if we don't," asked General Kwan. Hannah swallowed hard. "Complete extinction. They've never been refused before, across the solar system." Captain Jiho was leading his fighter squadron on a routine patrol near Mars when the alert came through. His cockpit lit up with warnings as his sensors detected the alien fleet. "All units, return to base immediately," came the order from command. "Negative," Jiho responded, his jaw tight. "We need eyes on these bastards. Shadow Squadron, form up on me. We're going in for a closer look." His 12 fighters accelerated toward the nearest alien vessels. As they approached, Jiho could see the true scale of what humanity faced. Each alien ship bristled with weapons. Energy signatures indicated power sources far beyond human technology. "They could wipe us out in minutes," whispered his wingman. "Maybe," Jiho said, "but let's make sure they know we're not going quietly." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, Commander Yuna walked through corridors that officially didn't exist. The experimental weapons facility had been her life's work for the past 15 years. Now, everything she had built in secret would be put to the test. She entered the main lab where her team was frantically running diagnostics on equipment that had never been used in actual combat. Reality anchors, quantum disruptors, probability field generators. Weapons based on technology that shouldn't exist. "How long until we can deploy?" she asked her lead engineer. "The systems are ready, Commander. We've been ready for 50 years. The question is whether we should use them." Yuna looked at the massive devices that filled the underground complex. Humanity had kept this secret for 2 centuries. If they used these weapons, there would be no hiding anymore. The galaxy would know what humans had become. President Taeyang sat in the emergency session with world leaders. From every nation, the video feeds showed frightened faces, angry voices, desperate pleas. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. Most just wanted to survive. "We need time," said the European Chancellor. "We're not ready for this. We'll never be ready," Taeyang replied. "The question is simple. Do we kneel or do we stand?" The vote was close, but the decision was made. Earth would not surrender. Admiral Minho was given full military authority. Every resource, every weapon, every ship was now under his command. Back on the Defender, Minho received the orders and called his senior staff together. The holographic display still showed the alien fleet, an impenetrable wall of ships surrounding their world. "They think they know us," Minho said quietly. "They think we're primitives who barely left our own solar system. They've done this 40,000 times before. Every civilization surrendered or died." He looked at each officer in turn. "But they don't know what we've been hiding. They don't know about the weapons on Mars. They don't know about the ancient ship we found 200 years ago. They don't know what we really are." Dr. Hannah's voice came through on the communication channel. "Admiral, I've accessed some old classified files. There's something you need to know about humanity's past. About where we really came from." "Tell me," Minho said. "Not over the cum," Hannah replied. "This information has been buried for 2 centuries. Only 5 people alive know the truth. You need to be the 6th." As the first day of the alien ultimatum ticked away, the alien fleet master Korth reviewed the scans of Earth's defenses. Primitive rockets, basic energy weapons, fragile ships held together with alloys his people had abandoned millions of years ago. "This will be the easiest conquest in 1,000 cycles," he told his officers. "Prepare the absorption protocols. In 72 hours, this planet and everyone on it will belong to the collective." Korth didn't know he had just made the biggest mistake of his very long life. Somewhere deep in the Kuiper Belt, buried in a frozen asteroid, an ancient ship's systems flickered to life for the first time in 40,000 years. Its sensors detected the alien fleet. Its final protocols activated. On Earth, in a secure bunker. Admiral Minho listened as Dr. Hannah revealed the truth about humanity's origin, about the architects, about the DNA that wasn't quite human, about the warning left behind by a dead civilization. When she finished, Minho sat in silence for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "So we're someone's weapon," he said softly. "Yes," Hannah replied. "Good," Minho said, standing up. "Let's show them what happens when you wake up a weapon that's been sleeping for 40,000 years." The countdown continued. 68 hours until the deadline. But Minho had no intention of waiting. The classified files filled the screen in front of Admiral Minho. He read through page after page of documents that had been sealed for 200 years. Dr. Hannah stood beside him, watching his face as the truth unfolded. It had started in 2647. A mining crew working in the Kuiper Belt had detected unusual metal signatures deep inside a frozen asteroid. When they drilled down to investigate, they found something impossible. A ship, buried in ice that was 4 billion years old. The ship was intact, Hannah explained, frozen in a moment of time. When we brought it back to Earth, we realized it wasn't human. It was built by another species. The files showed images of the derelict vessel. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of humanity's largest ships. The hull was made of a material that didn't match any element in the periodic table. Inside, they found bodies. The crew had died at their stations, perfectly preserved. "We called them the architects," Hannah continued, "because of what we found in their DNA." Minho looked up from the screen. "What do you mean?" Hannah pulled up a genetic comparison chart. 2 strands of DNA appeared side by side. One was human. One was from the architects. Sections of both were highlighted in red. "We share 12% of our DNA with them," Hannah said. "That's impossible through natural evolution. Admiral, they made us. Billions of years ago, the architects came to Earth and planted the seeds that would eventually become humanity." Minho stared at the evidence. His hands gripped the edge of the desk. "Why?" "There was a log entry in the ship's computer. It took us 50 years to translate it." Hannah pressed a button and text appeared on the screen. The message was simple and terrible. The architects had been a peaceful species. They had explored the galaxy for millions of years without violence. When they encountered the collective, they tried to negotiate. They tried to reason. They tried to surrender. The collective had destroyed them anyway. Not quickly, but slowly. World by world, station by station. The architects had no capacity for war. They couldn't understand cruelty. They couldn't fight back effectively. In their final days, The architects made a decision, Hannah said quietly. They found 12 primitive worlds with basic life. They seeded those worlds with their own DNA, but changed it. They gave their children something they never had. What? Minho asked. The ability to fight. The instinct for survival at any cost, aggression, stubbornness, the refusal to accept defeat. Anna's voice shook slightly. They made us as weapons, Admiral. Living weapons designed to do what they couldn't. To resist the collective.
Ow.
Minho stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the emergency lights of the city as people prepared for war. Above, invisible in the daylight, 12,000 alien ships waited. The technology we found on that ship, he said. We've been using it for 200 years, Hannah confirmed. At first, we could barely understand the basics, but something strange happened. As we studied the architect technology, human scientists began having breakthroughs. Ideas that seemed to come from nowhere. Concepts that shouldn't have made sense but did. She pulled up more files. Charts showing humanity's technological advancement over the past 2 centuries. The curve was impossible. It's fast. Too intuitive. The DNA they gave us contains more than just genetic information, Hannah explained. It contains knowledge. Dormant knowledge that activates when we're exposed to architect technology. We've been remembering things we never learned. Commander Yuna's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, you need to see what we've built. Minho authorized the secure connection. His screen split to show the underground facility on Mars. Massive chambers stretched out as far as the cameras could see. The equipment that looked more like art than weapons filled the space. These are reality anchors, Yuna explained, pointing to devices that resembled metal flowers. When activated, they freeze the laws of physics in a 10-kilometer radius. Faster than light travel stops working. Energy weapons fail. Even basic chemistry becomes unreliable. She moved to another chamber. These are quantum disruptors. They don't destroy matter. They displace it outside of normal spacetime. Anything hit by these weapons simply stops existing in our reality. Watched as his chief weapons officer explained technology. That violated everything he had learned. In his decades of military service, Ennis Yuna said, stopping in front of a chamber filled with thousands of small devices is the silent protocol. What does it do? Minho asked. Yuna was quiet for a moment. It awakens the full potential of the architect DNA in every human being. 8 billion people on Earth. 400 million in the colonies. All connected through quantum entanglement. All able to manipulate probability itself. That's impossible, Minho said. So were we, until the architects made us possible, Yuna replied. Sir, if we activate the silent protocol, we can change the outcome of the battle. We can make their weapons fail, their ships malfunction, their plans collapse. But there's a cost. What cost? The human brain wasn't designed to handle that much power. Some people will die. Many more will be permanently damaged. We ran the simulations. Conservative estimates suggest 40,000 deaths. Worst case, 500,000. Minho closed his eyes. 40,000 lives to save 8 billion? The math was simple. The choice was impossible. Captain Jiho's squadron returned to Mars base. As he climbed out of his fighter, he was met by armed guards who escorted him to a secure briefing room. Inside, he found Admiral Minho waiting. Captain, I'm sorry for the secrecy, Minho said, but you're about to be cleared for information that could change how you see everything. For the next hour, Jiho listened as the Admiral explained the truth about humanity's origin, about the architects, about the weapons hidden on Mars and Europa and Titan, about what humans really were. When the briefing ended, Jiho sat in stunned silence. Finally, he spoke. My whole life, I wondered why humans were so damn stubborn, why we never quit even when we should. Now I know. We were built that way.
Yes,
Minho said. The question is, are you ready to be what we were designed to be? Jiho stood up. His eyes were hard. Sir, I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. Across the solar system, preparations continued. Weapons were deployed. Ships were positioned. Scientists activated systems that had waited 200 years to be used on the Defender. Dr. Hannah studied the alien communications. The collective fleet was growing confident. They had begun casual conversations among their ships. They were talking about what they would do after Earth surrendered, how they would absorb humanity into their empire, which humans would be kept for study and which would be disposed of. "They're so certain they've already won," she muttered. Admiral Minho appeared behind her. "Good. Let them be certain." "Certainty makes you careless." He looked at the countdown clock. 48 hours until the deadline. He opened a channel to Commander Yuna. "Begin deployment of all experimental weapons," he ordered, "and prepare the silent protocol for activation." "We're not waiting for their deadline, sir?" Yuna sounded surprised. "We hit them first," Minho said. "We hit them hard. And we make absolutely certain that not a single ship escapes to warn the rest of the collective what we are." On the alien flagship, Fleet Master Korth reviewed the human defensive positions. Pathetic, scattered, disorganized. This would be over quickly. He had no idea that. Everything he was seeing was a carefully constructed lie. That beneath the surface of 3 moons and 2 planets, weapons were powering up. That in the darkness behind Saturn's rings, human ships waited in absolute silence. The trap was set. The prey was confident. Now came the hardest part. Waiting for the perfect moment to spring it. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the Defender and gave the order he had been preparing for his entire career. "Begin the evacuation. Make it look desperate." Across Earth and throughout the solar system, human ships suddenly burst into motion. They scattered in every direction, engines burning at maximum power. Civilian transports, cargo vessels, and even military ships fled from their positions in what appeared to be total panic. Min opened a communication channel that he knew the aliens were monitoring. His voice was shaky, defeated. "This is Earth Defense Command to all vessels. We cannot win this fight. All forces retreat to designated evacuation zones. Save as many people as you can. This is our only chance." On the alien flagship, Fleet Master Korth watched the human ships scatter like frightened fish. He allowed himself a satisfied smile. "They break even faster than I predicted. All fleets, pursue and contain. Do not let any vessel escape the system." The alien armada, which had maintained its perfect sphere formation, began to break apart. Ships peeled off in groups of hundreds to chase down the fleeing humans. The coordinated blockade became a chaotic pursuit across the solar system. "They're taking the bait," Commander Yuna reported from Mars. "All fleets are breaking formation," Good Minho replied. "Captain Jiho, you're up." Jiho sat in his fighter, surrounded by 499 other pilots. They'd been waiting in the shadow of Earth's moon, systems on minimal power to avoid detection. Now they activated their engines. "Shadow Squadron and all attached wings. This is Jiho. We're going in. Remember, they think we're making a desperate final attack. Let them think that right up until we deploy the anchors." The 500 fighters accelerated toward the nearest cluster of alien ships. The aliens detected them immediately. Weapon systems locked on. Energy beams lanced out, destroying the first wave of human fighters in brilliant explosions. Jiho watched his people die and kept flying. "Hold formation. Get closer." The aliens didn't even bother maneuvering. They simply fired, treating the human fighters like annoying insects. 50 fighters gone. 70. 100 now. Jiho screamed. Every remaining fighter deployed a reality anchor. The small devices activated simultaneously, and space itself seemed to freeze. In a 10-kilometer sphere around each anchor, the laws of physics stopped working the way they should. Alien FTL drives, which had been on standby, suddenly failed. Energy weapons sputtered and died. Life support systems flickered. The alien ships, so confident moments before, became floating metal coffins. Quantum disruptors, fire. Yuna commanded from Mars. Hidden weapon platforms that had been positioned behind Saturn's rings. On the surface of Mars and within the asteroid belt, all fired at once. The quantum disruptors didn't make explosions or flames. They simply made things cease to exist. One moment, an alien capital ship was trying desperately to restart its systems. The next moment, there was empty space where it had been. Not debris, not wreckage. Just nothing. Across the solar system, the carefully planned ambush unfolded. Every alien ship that had broken formation to pursue human vessels found itself trapped by reality, anchors, and targeted by quantum Diz. Fleet Master. Korth watched in horror as 70% of his fleet vanished in less than 2 hours. What is this? What are they using? His tactical officer's hand shook as he worked the damaged console. These are architect weapons, sir. The readings match historical records from the ancient war. Somehow these primitives have architect technology. Korth felt a chill run through his body. The architects had been extinct for 40,000 years. Their technology had been carefully destroyed by the collective to prevent exactly this scenario. How is this possible? He whispered. Dr. Hannah, monitoring alien communications from Earth, heard the fear in their voices. Admiral, they're terrified. They know what our weapons are. They're calling us inheritors. What does that mean? Minho asked. I'm not sure, but they seem to think we're the architect's children. They're not wrong. The battle raged for 6 more hours. The aliens, despite their losses, were adapting. They learned to detect the reality anchors and destroy them before they could be deployed. They found ways to jam the quantum disruptors' targeting systems. Korth managed to rally his remaining ships. 4,000 vessels against humanity's 800. He still had the numbers. All ships form defensive formation around my flagship. Concentrate all fire on their military vessels. Ignore the civilian targets. Captain Jiho pulled back with what remained of his squadron. Out of 500 fighters, only 143 were still operational. His cockpit was filled with warning lights and the smell of burned electronics. We can't hold them, he reported to Minho. They're consolidating. We hurt them badly, but they still outnumber us. Minho looked at the tactical display. The aliens were reforming into a tight defensive sphere. This time, they weren't surrounding Earth. They were protecting themselves while preparing a final assault. Commander Yuna Minho said quietly, Status on the silent protocol. All systems ready, sir. 8 billion people on Earth are standing by. 400 million in the colonies. We can activate on your order. Minho thought about the cost. 40,000 minimum. Maybe more. 40,000 lives to save 8 billion. He thought about the architects who had died because they couldn't fight. He thought about the DNA in every human cell, designed for exactly this moment. Before I give that order, I need to know. Will it work? Yuna's voice was steady. Sir, I've run every simulation. Once we activate it, the human mind becomes directly connected to quantum probability fields. We won't control matter. We'll control chance itself. Their weapons will malfunction. Their systems will fail in statistically impossible ways. Every decision they make will somehow be the wrong one, and the cost to our people. Some won't be able to handle the connection. Their brains will overload. We'll lose people, sir. But if we don't do this, we lose everyone. Minho closed his eyes. He thought about his oath to protect humanity. He thought about the millions of children on Earth who would die if the aliens won. He thought about the architects who had given humanity the tools to survive, but couldn't use those tools themselves. Activate the silent protocol, he ordered, on Earth. In every city and town and village, devices hidden for 200 years came online. They emitted a signal that resonated with the architect DNA in every human brain. People stopped what they were doing. Their eyes began to glow with a soft, unnatural light. 8 billion minds connected as one. 400 million more in the colonies joined them. Parents, children, soldiers, scientists, old and young, all of them suddenly aware of each other. All of them feeling the vast web of probability that underlay reality, and all of them focused on a single purpose: survive. In his fighter, Jiho felt the change. His vision expanded. He could see possibilities branching out like tree limbs. He could see which paths led to life and which to death. Without thinking, he adjusted his course by 3 degrees. A blast that would have killed him missed by centimeters. On the Defender, crew members moved with impossible precision. Every button pressed at exactly the right moment. Every decision perfect. Every action optimized by 8 billion minds working as one. And in the alien fleet, Fleetmaster Korth watched as his carefully organized formation began to fall apart. Weapons fired and hit their own ships. Navigation computers plotted courses into asteroids. Critical systems failed in ways that should have been impossible. "They're doing this," Korth said, understanding finally flooding through him. "They're not fighting us. They're changing reality itself." His communication officer tried to send a warning to the collective. The message corrupted before it could be transmitted. He tried again. The system exploded, killing him instantly. Korth knew he was going to die. He had time for one last act. He recorded a message on an isolated system, hoping somehow it would survive. "To any who receive this, do not come to this system. Do not engage these beings. They are not primitives. They are the weapon the architects created. They are the message cut off as the silent protocol reached its full power." 500 million humans focused their combined will on a single point in space. Probability collapsed. A singularity formed, not from gravity, but from impossible coincidence. The remaining alien ships were pulled toward it. Their engines failing, their weapons useless, their crews screaming in languages no human understood. Then the singularity collapsed, and silence filled the void where an alien fleet had been. The silence after the battle was worse than the fighting had been. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching the view screen show empty space where 12,000 alien ships had been just hours before. Debris floated in the void, but most of the alien fleet had simply vanished, pulled into that impossible singularity. "Casualty reports coming in," Lieutenant Park said. Her voice was hollow. The numbers appeared on Minho's screen. His hands trembled as he read them. 42,000 humans dead from neural overload during the silent protocol. Another 200,000 in critical condition. Millions more reporting headaches, memory loss, and psychological trauma from the connection. "Get me medical teams to every population center," Minho ordered. "Priority 1. I don't care about the celebration. Our people are dying." On Earth, the streets were filled with people who had collapsed where they stood when the protocol activated. Dr. Hannah walked through the chaos in Seoul, stepping over bodies. Some were still alive, their eyes glowing faintly. Others had died with smiles on their faces. Their final thoughts connected to 8 billion other minds. She knelt beside a young woman whose eyes were bleeding. The woman was still breathing, but barely. "Get a medic over here," Hannah screamed. The medic arrived, but shook his head. "There's too many. We're triaging. Only those with a chance of survival." "She has a chance," Hannah insisted. "Doctor, we have 40,000 dead and counting. We have to choose." The medic moved on to the next victim. Hannah held the young woman's hand until she stopped breathing. Then she moved to the next person, and the next, trying to help where she could. This was the cost of victory. This was the price humanity had paid. Captain Jiho landed his fighter at the Mars base. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. During the battle, connected to the silent protocol, he had felt invincible. He had seen the universe's equations and probabilities. He had known exactly what to do at every moment. Now disconnected, he felt hollow, empty, like something vital had been ripped away. From inside his skull, Commander Yuna found him sitting in the hangar, staring at nothing. "Captain, are you injured?" "I could feel them," Jiho said quietly. "All of them. 8 billion minds. I wasn't just myself anymore. I was part of something bigger. And now," he looked at his hands, "now I'm alone again. And it hurts." Yuna had studied the psychological effects of the silent protocol in simulations. She knew what Jiho was experiencing. Separation trauma. The human mind wasn't meant to connect with billions of others and then disconnect. It was like losing family you never knew you had. It will get easier, she lied. Give it time. 3 days after the battle, the recovery efforts continued. Medical facilities were overwhelmed. Psychiatrists worked around the clock trying to help people who had experienced something no human should have been able to experience. And then the intelligence teams began their work on the alien survivors. 3,000 aliens had been captured alive. Most were in shock, unable to believe they had been defeated by what they considered primitive beings. Dr. Hannah led the interrogation teams. She sat across from a captured alien commander named Vex. He was tall, with gray skin and 3 eyes that never blinked. Tell me about the collective, Hannah said. Vex laughed bitterly. You've doomed yourselves. You think you've won? This was one fleet. One small fleet. The collective spans 8,000 galaxies. We have absorbed 40,000 species over 40 million years. How many ships does the collective have? Hannah asked.
8 millions!
Billions, perhaps. I do not know the exact number. No one does. The collective is eternal. It cannot be defeated. Hannah leaned forward. But you can be defeated. We proved that. You used architect weapons? Vex said. We know what you are now. We know the architects seeded worlds with their DNA. You are inheritors. And the collective will mobilize everything to destroy you. When Hannah demanded, Vex smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. A message was sent before the singularity destroyed our communications array. The collective knows you exist. They know you have architect technology. They know you can fight. In approximately 5 of your years, an extermination armada will arrive. Not 12,000 ships, 12 million. Maybe more. Hannah felt her stomach drop. You're lying. I wish I was. The collective does not tolerate threats. You have made yourselves the greatest threat to ever emerge in 40 million years. They will erase your entire species from existence. The interrogation continued for hours, and every alien they questioned told the same story. A massive fleet was coming. In 5 years, humanity would face extinction on a scale they couldn't imagine. Admiral Minho called an emergency meeting with world leaders. President Tai Yang sat at the head of the table, his face showing the strain of the past week. We have 3 options, Minho said. First, we run. We abandon Earth, scatter to the stars, and hope the collective never finds us. We'd be refugees forever, Tai Yang said. Always hiding, always afraid. Second option, we surrender now. Make contact with the collective. Explain that we'll submit peacefully and hope they're merciful. After we destroyed 12,000 of their ships, someone asked, they'll never accept surrender. Which brings us to option 3, Minho said. We fight. We use these 5 years to prepare. We build more weapons. We train every human on how to use the silent protocol safely. We turn the entire solar system into a fortress. And how many will die this time? Asked the Chinese premier. 40,000 dead from one battle. How many in the next? Millions? Billions? The room fell silent. The cost of the silent protocol had shaken everyone. The victory felt hollow when hospitals were still filled with the broken minds of people who had saved humanity. Dr. Hannah entered the room with a tablet in her hands. There might be a 4th option. Everyone turned to look at her. She projected data from the architect ship onto the main screen. I've been studying the architect records. They didn't just seed Earth. They seeded 12 other worlds across the universe. Each one got different DNA modifications. Different abilities. Different strengths. What are you saying? Tai Yang asked. I'm saying we're not alone. There are 12 other species out there like us. Other inheritors, each one designed to fight in ways the architects couldn't. If we can find them, unite them, combine our abilities, ... Hannah's eyes shone with desperate hope. We might have a chance against the collective. Minho pulled up a star chart. Do we know where these other species are? The architect database has partial coordinates. It's not complete, but it's a start. The nearest one is approximately 800 light-years away. 800 light-years, someone muttered. That's impossible with our current technology, Commander Yuna said. Not if we fully reverse-engineer the Architect FTL drives. I've been studying the derelict ship's propulsion system. With the knowledge we gained from the silent protocol connection, we can build ships capable of reaching those coordinates. President Tai Yang looked around the room at the exhausted, traumatized leaders. We've just been through hell. We've lost 40,000 people. Millions more are traumatized. And you're asking us to prepare for an even bigger fight? I'm asking us to survive, Hannah said quietly. The architects made us for a purpose. They died hoping we could do what they couldn't. We can hide. We can surrender. Or we can become what we were designed to be. The vote took hours. It was close. Many wanted to run or surrender. But in the end, the decision was made. Humanity would fight. They would spend 5 years preparing. They would search for their sibling species. And when the collective arrived with their 12 million ships, they would find Earth ready. Admiral Minho looked at the casualty reports one more time. 42,000 dead, 200,000 injured, millions traumatized, and possibly billions more to come. I'm sorry, he whispered to the names on the screen. I'm so sorry, but your sacrifice won't be wasted. He closed the file and opened a new one. Planning documents for the next 5 years, ship designs, weapon specifications, training protocols for the silent protocol that would hopefully reduce casualties next time. The war wasn't over. It had barely begun. But humanity had learned something important in that first battle. They could win. At terrible cost, yes. But they could win. The question was whether they could win again when the real threat arrived. 3 months had passed since the battle. Earth was rebuilding, but the scars remained. Memorial services were held in every city for the 42,000 who had died during the silent protocol. Hospitals still treated the hundreds of thousands who had survived but were changed forever. Dr. Hannah walked through the medical ward in Seoul, checking on patients who had been connected to the protocol. Many would never fully recover. Some spoke about still feeling the connection, like phantom limbs from minds that were no longer there. Others had retreated into themselves, overwhelmed by the memory of being part of something so vast. Dr. Hannah. A young man called out from his bed. His name was Doyon, and he had been a teacher before the battle. Now he could barely remember his own students' names. How are you feeling today, Doyon? Hannah asked, sitting beside him. I remember everything and nothing, he said, his eyes distant. I remember being connected to everyone, knowing what they felt, thinking with billions of minds. Now, it's like trying to remember a dream. But I know it was real. It was real, Hannah confirmed. What you did saved humanity. Was it worth it? Doyon asked. All of us who are broken now? The thousands who died. Was it worth the cost? Hannah didn't have an answer. She held his hand and said nothing. In orbit around Mars, the construction yards worked day and night. Humanity was building a new generation of ships using fully reverse-engineered architect technology. The first of these ships was the UES Architect. It's named after the species that had created humanity. Admiral Minho walked through the ship's bridge for the first time. Everything was different from human designs. The controls responded to thought as much as touch. The engines could bend space in ways that made conventional FTL travel look like crawling. She's beautiful, Captain, Jiho said, standing beside him. Jiho had recovered somewhat from the trauma of the silent protocol, but his eyes still held a haunted look. She's a weapon, Minho corrected. Like us. Like everything the architects made. Commander Yuna joined them on the bridge. She carried a datapad with the coordinates extracted from the architect database. We've confirmed the location of the nearest inheritor species. A planet 873 light-years from Earth, with the new FTL drives. We can make the journey in approximately 6 months. What do we know about them? Minho asked. Very little. The architect records indicate they were seeded with different modifications than humans. While we got aggression and the ability to manipulate probability, they received different gifts. The records don't specify what. So we're going in blind, Jiho said. Going in with hope, Yuna corrected. Hope that we can find allies. Hope that together, the inheritor species can stand against the collective. President Taiyang's voice came through the communication system. Admiral Minho, the Council has approved your mission. You'll take a fleet of 50 ships to make contact with the first inheritor species. The rest of our forces will remain here to fortify the solar system.
Understood.
Mr. President, Minho replied, we'll bring back allies or die trying. See that you don't die, Taiyang said. We've lost enough people already. The following weeks were spent preparing the expedition. 50 ships, each one built with architect technology. 5,000 crew members, carefully selected from those who had survived the silent protocol with minimal trauma. They would need to be able to use that ability again if necessary. Dr. Hannah would lead the diplomatic team. Captain Jiho would command the military escort. Commander Yuna would manage the technical aspects of the mission. Admiral Minho would have overall command. The night before they departed, Minho stood on Earth, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 11 other species existed. 11 other weapons created by the architects. Would they be friends or enemies? Would they even be willing to help? Can't sleep either? Dr. Hannah's voice came from behind him. Minho turned to see her approaching. Too much to think about. We're about to travel farther than any human has ever gone. To meet a species we know nothing about, to ask them to join us in a war they didn't start. The architects started this war 40,000 years ago, Hannah said. They just couldn't finish it. That's our job now. You ever wonder if they were right to make us? Minho asked. We're weapons, Hannah. Living, breathing weapons designed to kill. Is that all we are? Hannah looked up at the stars. I think we're more than what they intended. Yes, they designed us to fight. But we also love, create, dream, and hope. We're not just weapons. We're their children trying to finish what they started while being more than they could have imagined. The next morning, the 50 ships prepared for departure. Across Earth and the colonies, people gathered to watch the fleet leave. This wasn't just an exploration mission. This was humanity's first step toward a larger war. On the bridge of the architect, Minho gave the order. All ships prepare for FTL jump. Destination. Coordinates Alpha 77, 873 light-years distant. The ship's engines hummed with power that came from technology older than human civilization. Space bent around them, reality folding in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Jump in 3.2.1. Mark. The fleet disappeared in a flash of light. Behind them, Earth continued its preparations. Weapons factories on Mars worked overtime. Training centers taught millions of people how to safely connect through the silent protocol. Scientists studied every scrap of architect technology they could find, and in deep space, monitoring stations were built to give early warning when the collective's armada arrived. 5 years. That's all the time they had. In the ruins of the alien fleet, a single damaged probe drifted through the debris. Its systems had been fried by the reality anchors, its transmitter destroyed by the quantum disruptors. But its recorder still functioned. Slowly, it began to repair itself using autonomous systems. Within a year, it would be functional enough to send a message. The message Fleetmaster Korth had tried to send. Before he died, but that message would be incomplete, corrupted. Instead of warning the collective to stay away from Earth, it would only tell them one thing. Architect technology had been found. The inheritors existed, and they were dangerous. The message would reach the collective in 4 years, and they would respond with everything they had. On board the architect. 6 months into their journey, Dr. Hannah studied the data about the species they were going to meet. The architects had called them something in their own language that roughly translated to the resonant ones. What do you think they'll be like? Jiho asked. I don't know, Hannah admitted. But I hope they're ready for what's coming. Because in 4.5 years, the collective will arrive at Earth with an armada that could burn entire solar systems. We need every inheritor species we can find if we're going to survive. Admiral Minho looked at the view screen, showing the stars streaking past at impossible speeds. Somewhere ahead, another species of architect children waited. Behind them, Earth prepared for war. And in between, the collective was mobilizing forces beyond imagination. "Send a message back to Earth," Minho ordered. "Tell them we're on course. Tell them to keep building, keep training, keep preparing. And tell them one more thing." "What's that, sir?" the communications officer asked. Minho's voice was firm. "Tell them that the collectives surrounded our world once, and we destroyed them. They're coming again with greater numbers, but they're not facing us alone anymore. We're going to find our family. And when the collective arrives, they'll learn what happens when you threaten the architect's children." The message was sent, transmitted across 800 light-years of space. It would take months to arrive, but it carried hope. Hope that humanity wasn't alone. Hope that the inheritors could unite. Hope that weapons designed to fight could also choose to protect. Far away in a galaxy, the collective controlled. Preparations began for the largest military mobilization in their 40-million-year history. 12 million ships. Weapons that could crack planets. Soldiers from 1,000 conquered species. They were coming for Earth. But Earth was no longer the primitive world they had expected. Earth was ready. And soon, Earth would have allies. The war for survival had begun. And this time, humanity would not stand alone.